Good day, everyone. My name is Sotanmide Oluwatobi Moses. I am a poet and I love poetry. I love poetry because poetry is imaginative, poetry is beautiful, and poetry inspires. These more are the reasons why I personally caught poetry early as a young man, and to date is my best form of writing. I am in love with poetry. And today I'll be sharing some of the poems I love with you. And these poems range from historicity, some deals with beauty of nature, and some deals with human experiences. And I hope you will love them. And before I go into these particular poems, I want to do a brief that about poetry itself. That poetry is one of the most powerful of all the arts because of its dual nature of appeal, whereby it appeals both to the eye and the ear. Poetry paints picture and now also appeals to your imagination. And that's the beauty of poetry. So by the time I begin to read out those poems, I want you to know that they are not odd. Poetry is not odd. It's not detached, separated from everyday experience that we go through. In fact, poetry is part of our life. And poetry is who we are. We are all written troves of memories. So I hope you enjoy them. The central theme for this particular poem is about preserving a memory. So here I would say poetry preserves memory. And this poem is a poetic tribute to Thomas A. Edison, the man who invented electricity and perfected the technology of phonograph. This particular poem, I love it so much. It was written by George Sanford Holmes. And the title of the poem is And Yet Fool Says. And Yet Fool Says. It's a tribute to Thomas Edison upon his death. And I read this poem by George Sanford. And yet fool says, he captured light and caged it in a glass, then harnessed it forever to a wire. He gave men robots with no backs to tire in bearing burdens for the toiling mass. He freed the tongues in woods and wax and brass, imbued dull images with motion's fire, transmuted metal into human choir. These man-made miracles he brought to pass. Bulbs burnish night along the great white way. Thin threads of copper throb with might unseen. On silver curtains, shadow actors play that walk and talk from magic-mounted machine, while continents converse through skies overhead, and yet fool says that Edison is dead. That's by George Sanford Holmes. Such a beautiful piece, the memory of an inventor of electricity. And if you can see, I'm equally enjoying that invention. You see the light that is beaming on me, showing my beautiful face to you. And see how the poet captured the memory, the beauty of that invention. It says Edison is not dead because his invention lives. And he tries to describe that invention, how light was captured and caged in the glass. As powerful as light is, you can imagine the power of the sun beaming upon the face of the earth, and someone was able to bring about a miniature of that power and strength and share it with us as human. So he says he captured light and caged it on a glass. And is that not true of electricity, the bulbs? Then annexed it forever to a wire. So you see, it's like there's a medium through which light passes, the power travels. And say he gave men robots with no back to tire. One of the graces that flows from electricity and this invention, unique invention by Edison, is that the manual labor of men are reduced by the invention of machines. He described them, he gave men robots with no back to tire in bearing burdens for the toiling mass. We would have trekked miles for journey in past decades, but in our own time, you can just pick your car and kick and move. Everything is intertwined. There is the electric part of the vehicle and there is the mechanical part, but you can also do away with the electrical part. So in this sense, we see the beauty of poetry as able to capture the memory of this individual, and I was able to present in vivid terms what that invention is all about. So here I conclude that poetry preserves memory, and it paints picture of a reality, and in this case, an invention called electricity. I hope you enjoyed that particular poem. And another one is, I say poetry is an artist, and that's a bold statement. Say poetry paints reality with words beauteously crafted, and that some of the most beauteous scenes in nature have been captured in poetry. And this particular one is about night. Night, we have the morning, we have the afternoon, and we have the night. So this writer, this poet, Longfellow, was writing about the night, and like a layman, in everyday experience, we make some statements that convey the reality we are going through. So in this case, let's imagine I want to make a statement about the night, and I put it forward to you. I say, oh, it is late afternoon and it is growing dark. By that, you could capture my thought and say, okay, he's talking about the approaching night. Then, if you are a little bit more poetic, you may elaborate with this beautiful statement and say, oh, at the end of the day, when the shadows darken and night falls slowly and softly. Now I'm becoming much more poetic. But in the case of Longfellow, and I'm bringing it to you, and that is why I love that quatrain. Very short poetry, but beautifully crafted. I told you aforetime that poetry is an artist. And you see that some scenes in nature are beauteously crafted by words, carefully selected to paint those reality. And see how Longfellow described the night. He says, the day is done, and the darkness falls from the wings of night, as a feather is wafted downward from an eagle in its flight. Wow, beautiful lines. Let me take it again. The day is done, and the darkness falls from the wings of night, as a feather is wafted downward from an eagle in its flight. Here, the idea of night is presented vividly. Night becomes a great shadowy bird from which the darkness actually falls. Can you see the imagery? A test for the imaginative sense. That's what poetry does. Poetry is a test for our imaginative sense. You see that the idea of night, having been presented vividly, the night becomes a persona. It becomes a great shadowy bird from which the darkness actually falls. And you may ask me, how does it fall? It was well presented in that poem. Not merely slowly and softly, but softly as the lightest of things, gently floating down to earth softly. And Longfellow puts it this way. He says, as a feather is wafted downward from an eagle in his flight. Beautiful, beautiful piece. So you may look for it. It was written by Longfellow, and it's about the night. The day is done, and the darkness falls from the wings of the night, as a feather is wafted downward, from an eagle in its flight. Beautiful form. So I hope you enjoy my time with you. These are the poems I love, and hopefully one day you will also have time to share with me the poetry and the poems you love. Thank you.